Okay, we're going to start with doing some value and shading. I'm going to start with Chiaroscuro, which is the most used value pattern. And right here at the top of my paper, I made a value scale. I numbered it from 1 to 10. I'm using regular pencils right now, and I'm going to go from light to dark. The first one, I'm going to leave white because we do have white in our picture. And then number 2, I'm using a 2H pencil and I'm going really light. So I want to make a really light gray with a pencil. So these are just regular pencils, drawing pencils. This can be a little bit challenging to make the gradation. Sometimes you have to darken things or make things lighter. So I'm going to a little bit of a darker pencil, which is a B for number 3. I don't want to go too dark too soon, right? I want to make it gradual. I'm just thinking to myself, is this too dark? I think it looks okay. I'm kind of making up and down motions and circular motions with my pencil. And now I'm going to use this same pencil and try to go a little bit darker. This can be a bit time consuming. Do I think that's too dark? I think it's okay. I'm kind of leaving the top clear. I'm going to use the same pencil. A B is kind of in the middle, and I'm going to go a little bit darker. Maybe this is too dark. I'm going to try to go all the way to 10. Maybe you're going to have to look to see if you think like the gradations between values, like maybe this gradation is too large. And then you'll end up with some of them looking the same. You don't have to do 10. You can do 5 if you want, but doing 10 is very helpful. That may be too dark. I may be going too fast from light to dark. You can, if that happens to you, can erase or lighten up. I think this looks maybe a little too dark. I'm going to use my eraser and try to get some of the graphite off of there. I'm still using the same pencil. I'll probably change after this square, which is a middle pencil, a B. Okay, now I'm going to go a bit darker. And I don't really have, well, I have a 2B. So I'm going to go to a 2B, which is softer and darker. I am talking about pencils in the line videos. I'm going to continue with the 2B right here. And that looks too similar to me. So I'm getting a darker pencil, which is a 6B. Unfortunately, I don't have a 4B with me. So I'm just using a 6B, which is a really soft, dark pencil to darken it. And then I'm going to use the same pencil right here. And I'm pressing harder. I'm probably going to do another layer. Well, that actually looks okay. So I think the value scale looks okay. So now I'm going to go to 10. And I'm still using the 6B. That's the darkest pencil I have right now. Oftentimes, so this is a very dark, soft pencil. Oftentimes in my pencil drawings, I enhance with a colored pencil. So this is just a black colored pencil. I usually use it for the darkest darks in my pencil drawings, and I put it over the pencil. You can also do a drawing in colored pencil, which I'll show you later. Okay. I just like to have a really dark black. The graphite of the pencil doesn't get that dark, so I use a colored pencil. Now, I'm just going to draw a sphere in Chiaroscuro, which is using the whole value scale with even blending from one value to another. It's Italian, it's what they used for shading. There's other value patterns, which I'll show you in other videos, but the most common is chiaroscuro, so you're seeing lights, mediums, and darks. So I'm going to make a sphere. I'm drawing a circle. If when you're doing this you want a perfect circle, you can trace a circle like a cup. But I'm just going to freehand it. Or a compass. Okay, I'm going to shade this and then show you what the different parts of shading are called. It's a little lopsided right here. So I'm just bringing it out. Okay, so I'm going to have my highlight be right here. So the highlight is the lightest part of the drawing. That means it's white. So we're not, I don't have white pencil, so I want to leave the paper as the white because I'm working on white paper. And then I'm going to start going pretty light around here. So you can, to practice this, you can get a sphere or a ball, but you would want it to be white to start because it's harder to see it on a dark. But later on, a dark ball would be a good practice exercise. And or you can look at a picture or you can use another object. Just raising this up a little bit higher. And then since this is the lightest area, I'm kind of making lines, but one thing that you don't want to do when you start shading is doing lines, like stripes of value. You want them to blend together, and I'll show you how to do that here. Okay, this is going to be a light, medium, dark, medium. And there's a cast shadow, which is the shadow that the object is casting on the table. It's usually kind of an elongated, like this is a sphere or a circle in 3D. And so the shadow is like an elongated circle or kind of like an oval, right? If you're doing different shapes, it'll take on that shape in an elongated form. Okay, so now I'm going to do light. And this takes a while. I may speed up the video, I'm not sure yet. This can be a little bit time consuming. So I'm using the light pencil again. I'm using the 2H. So it's hard and it doesn't give you that dark of a line. It actually takes longer to shade with this because it's so fine or so thin. It's a light pencil. And you can go lighter. This is probably the lightest I go. So the different things that we can use for shading are pencils, colored pencils, and charcoal pencils, and charcoal. And we'll see all of them in this series. And the only thing I don't like about these fine pencils, so this is I'm just going to focus it one more time to see if this is a 2H. So it's so fine that you can kind of, even when you're shading and doing lines and circular motions with your pencils, you can kind of see line work in between the lines. But it gets easier when you're using darker pencils because they just kind of, they're softer. So they just kind of come off onto the paper. Anyway, I'm going to come back to that. So it does look like a stripe here, right? It looks like a stripe of light and a circle of white. That's the way I start. And then I try to blend. So now I'm going to go into my B. So if you can see these gradations on your object, so if you can see, well, this is kind of a light and down here is kind of a medium. That's going to be the first thing that you need to do is be able to see which is lighter and darker. And then you can put on bands or stripes and then you can blend. I mean, the stripes, this is how most people start, but sometimes they leave it like this, and that looks a little weird, right? Because you don't see stripes on a curved object. And you may bring some of this up, you may erase, you may change. You'll figure that out when you're drawing. When I draw in layers. It's not just one layer that brings me the final product. You can do this with a bunch of different shapes, like a cone, a cube, a sphere, and a cylinder. You would want to have them out. Hopefully they would be white. If you don't have them, you can use pictures. But it's better to use real objects. You can also use like cups, vases. You don't want see-through when you're starting. You would want something or a shiny surface. That would be something a little bit more complicated and something you would want to do later. But something with a matte surface in probably a light color to start. You can do dark colors later. A simple object would be good. It's better to draw from real objects than to draw from pictures. It's harder, but you are learning more. Because when you're drawing from a picture, you're translating a 2D surface to a 2D surface. And then when you're drawing from like a vase, you're transferring a 3-dimensional surface to a 2-dimensional surface. So it looks very stripy now, and I'm going to blend it, but I'm just getting some value on here. When you're working with black, white, and gray, there's no color in the drawing. You're calling the 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 different shades of values, and then in color you would call them colors. So a common mistake is that I'm doing this in blacks, white, and grays, and those are the colors I'm using, but no, those are the values I'm using. Okay, so the lightest down here is reflected light. I'm going to go into the cast shadow, which is usually the darkest part of the drawing. And I'm just using the same value that I used right here. I'm going to darken some areas in a minute. Sometimes you see reflected light and sometimes you don't. So I have right now, I'm just using a piece of drawing sketch paper. So right now I have my basic values. If this needs work, this doesn't, I mean, this is not blended and you're seeing a lot of line in here. So it needs another layer. As I said, I draw in layers. So I'm actually going to bring this up. And I'm going to go back to my B pencil. And I'm going to bring this up too. If you go too dark somewhere, you can erase it. I'm just right now, before blending, I'm trying to clean up you're seeing little bits of white between the lines, and I'm trying to clean that up with the pencil. So it looks more uniform. And then I'm going to try to blend right here. Okay, I'm kind of going dark on the edge because like I know that it curves and it kind of goes back in space. So this part is coming forward. This part is going back. So it is darker on the edges. And like this still kind of looks like a line. So I'm kind of blending it by going over it with this value, but I'm pressing lighter and I'm trying to have it like bleed and like the colors of a rainbow, how they bleed together. Like you're not seeing a stripe of yellow and a stripe of orange. It's like yellow bleeding into orange. I don't know another word to except for bleed or fading into. And that's what I'm trying to do in the drawing with the values. So I'm using the pencil I used here, and I'm pressing lighter. You can use lines or circular motions. I'm trying to leave some of the value up here, the lighter value, showing through at parts. And in my motions, I'm going from this value and I'm lightening, I'm not pressing as hard when I go into the lighter area. Okay, and now this circle needs work. So I'm going to get the lighter pencil that I was using, which is a 2H. I'm also going to clean up. I'm doing another layer here to kind of clean up the white that's showing through the lines. And I mean, that doesn't look that good because I kind of, when I went in here to try to blend this area, I ended up making this area darker, right, than this. So that kind of doesn't, that looks weird because it should be darker here and getting lighter. So I'm going to kind of try to darken this area. And you can always work around your drawing. And I'm going to use my eraser. Oh, there was chalk or charcoal on the eraser. You can also kind of like clean up with an eraser if you made something too dark. And I don't like this smudge right here. I'm trying to get that off. You can blend as well with an eraser. I need to get that smudge off, but I'm gonna move down. So I'm gonna go back to my 2B. And I'm going to try to darken this area. And as well as blend it. Okay, it still looks like a stripe, so I need to fix that. I'm going to bring this darker pencil around on the edge. And I'm trying to blend it into this lighter value down here. Okay, this looks too much like a stripe. And I'm going to blend, I just want a little sliver of light showing at the bottom, which is the reflected light. I'm going to label this for you in a minute. Okay. I'm going really dark right under the object on the cast shadow. And I need to erase that because that dark kind of got into the light area. And I'm trying to blend this. Okay. This needs to be blended more too. I'm going to actually, I'm going to label some things for you. This is not perfect, but I might work on it a little bit more. So there's two categories of light when you're looking at shading or chiaroscuro. There's direct light, where the light is hitting the object, and there's indirect light, where the light is directly on the object. So on this, since the highlight is right here, you know that the sun or whatever light source it is, I'll put a light bulb right here, is up in this direction. So this is the light source. So if I divide this kind of diagonally, like right here, this top half is going to be indirect light because the light source is on it, right? And the bottom half down here is going to be an indirect light because light is not exactly hitting it. Okay. And the parts of the shadow, so this part that it's reflecting on the table or whatever surface it's sitting on is the cast shadow. Usually the darkest part of the drawing. This little white part right here, which is sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't, depending on the light source. Before I say any more about this, sometimes there's more than one light source. So like if you're in a room, like in an art room, and they have set up a still life and there's two lights on from different directions, you're going to have two highlights. Sometimes there's three lights on. So there'll be different cast shadows. So there'll be like another cast shadow over here if there's also a light over here. I know I'm getting on a tangent here, but just to let you know, there's not always only one light source. One light source is the easiest way to learn shading. This is reflected light, which you don't always see depending on how the light is set up. This is the shadow, core of shadow, the darkest part of the shadow. The cast shadow is the darkest part of the drawing. And this is the white part is the highlight. And this really light part is the halftone. Let me try to get this off one more time. So sometimes you have problems that you can't fix, like that smudge that I got on there with the eraser. It's still showing. I'm going to get a black colored pencil. So sometimes I like to use this in a pencil or graphite drawing to enhance the darkest parts of the drawing. So I'm just going right under here, which would be in the cast shadow. It's just you get a dark or a black that you really can't get with a pencil. And that's why I like to have this when I'm just doing a pencil drawing. I think it can really help getting the darkness that you want out of the value scale instead of just trying to use pencil. Okay, I think I'm going to stop here. I think you have the basic idea. It's not perfect. I could be working on this for a while more with blending and trying to get the smudge off, but you get the idea. So I'm going to stop this drawing here.